Welcome back, everybody, to the Aaron's High Cap Adventure Radio program. Again, it's October 14th, 2017. And to my left, I have sitting next to me Super Attorney Rick Dodd. Rick, how's it going this morning?
Oh, it's doing great. I'm looking forward to some Steaktober next weekend, maybe the Rockdale Fair, so all is well.
You always have something going on, you know that?
I love it. Hey, it's what it's all about. Otherwise, you're wasting your time.
That's right. We just talked about wasting your time, too, on my opinion piece. It's amazing how it all just fits together. Okay.
Yeah, Charles de Gaulle said the cemeteries are full of indispensable people. You were talking about your opinion piece about cemeteries.
Yes, sir.
So, you know, we're all indispensable, right?
That's right. That's right. Okay, let's get to business here, because I know you got a lot of information, and this is basically what I wrote down with quick notes. I wanted to discuss with you about prepaid legal programs that are being offered for those of us who carry a weapon. Now, I'm asking you on because I don't trust these programs at all, and I'm hoping that you can shed some light onto their effectiveness if, God forbid, their services are ever needed. So,
Their effectiveness? Well, how about their economic impact on you? I mean, you got to remember that this is a commercial enterprise, and in Texas right now we have situations where the legislatures are washing the feet of these corporations and pretty much giving them a free-for-all. It used to be back in the 80s and early 90s, for instance, we had a general liability insurance policy for automobiles. And, you know, you can compare apples to apples whether you went to one corporation or another. Well, they took that away, and now the corporations can fine-tune theirs and put in certain exceptions. One example is an exception so that if you get charged with being DUI, you're not covered. Now, of course, they say, well, you have to have the $30,000 limit, but if you had $1 million policy for liability and for some reason or another you wound up behind the wheel when you shouldn't be, then you wouldn't have the $30,000. Now, you know, those are the kinds of things that we're seeing. There are a lot of things that we do when we buy things that aren't necessarily rational. In fact, you may have noticed lately we've been seeing in the news where a Nobel laureate of economics who talks about that sort of thing. He talks about how we make decisions that are focused on narrow impacts and how we make decisions that are not necessarily rational. And some of those decisions have to do with insurance. And there are a number of pieces of insurance out there on the market that really just aren't worth the dollars that you spend on them. And I would throw this one into the mix. But insurance is never worth anything unless you need it, right?
that's right.
I mean, it's worth nothing until you need it.
You know, you made a comment that, let me interject real fast. If I have a problem, I need to go to an attorney, I go to an attorney. I pick the one I want. I get this bad rub, this bad feeling when somebody's promoting me a service like this. Like you said, it's economics. They're out there, they got a program they're selling, and obviously the more bodies they get, they're going to make it look as pretty as they can and entice you the best way they can. So when I've looked at it, because I've been in this type of system where I used to promote it for basic attorney services, not just for somebody carry conceal. And
Something like prepaid legal,
something like that, maybe. And I saw a lot of people being stuck on the loopholes that they throw in there, saying, oops, no, you can't do this. There's an exception there, there's an exception here, and the person's believing that they can call up at any moment, have an attorney on the line.
Well, in fact, I was one of those persons in the loophole back in my younger days. I was called by the service itself and said, there's a fellow over at the Mound County Jail who got a ticket for speeding in his truck, and for some reason they arrested him. So I went over to help the fellow out and got him out and took care of him. And then they said, oh, well, sorry, he wasn't covered, so we're not going to pay you.
Jeez, wow, yeah.
It's just an example. There's some other examples of insurance policies that really you got to take a second look at would be like private mortgage insurance, extended warranties. You know, every time you buy something like a refrigerator or a washing machine, they want to sell you an extended warranty. Most of the time they already have warranties on them that are sufficient. And then once the thing wears out, you're ready for an upgrade anyway. Even automobile collision. I mean, if you have enough money to pay for another car that's cost more than it's worth, rental car insurance, rental car damage, flight insurance, water line coverage. That's another one that we're getting hit on a lot lately. I mean, most people have water lines that are like, 100 feet long. They go from the city to their house. Just not worth the coverage. Life insurance on children, that's something that a lot of things are sold. Life insurance really is for people who have other dependents that need to be taken care of when they're gone. Flood insurance, and of course we've seen so much on the news about flood insurance now, but it's still just plain not worth it when you live on the hill. Makes no sense at all, right? But they'll sell it to you if you'll buy it. Credit card insurance, credit card life insurance, loss insurance. It's better if you just pay your credit card down, obviously, because then you don't have to pay the insurance or the interest.
I guess there's nothing wrong with this insurance at all if you understand entirely what it's going to do for you, and that's why I wanted to focus on the gun stuff specifically.
That's right, Matt. That's the tough part of it, focusing on what it says. And of course, they'll give you a 20-page small print piece of paper, and the devil, as I've said many times, is in the details.
Details, yeah.
What are the details? So, gun insurance. A lot of times the kind of insurance that you have for civil liabilities is covered in your homeowner's insurance. So that makes the part of the gun insurance not reasonable that covers civil liability. And when you look at it and they tell you, well, we have $1.2 million in coverage for you for only $30 a month, the $1 million is for the civil liability part of it. The other is for some sort of criminal liability. And then they have more exceptions within the policy that limit that. So, and also, you got to remember, Matt, whenever there's one company out there making a buck, an easy buck, and a lot of times in insurance, there's going to be other options too. I know that the NRA has came out with a new program called, I think it's called Carry Guard. Mm-hmm. And if you look at an analysis, what they try to do, of course, is set things up so that it's pretty close to their competition. U.S. Carry Association, Concealed Carry Association has a policy that's much like the NRA policy, but there are a few differences. They cost about the same. I think the USCCA is about $30. The NRA is about $32 a month. The criminal aspect of it, the USCCA is $125,000, where NRA is $150,000. That would be to hire you on a lawyer to represent you in the event that you've been arrested. But the thing about the USCCA is they give you 100% of that up front if you need it to cover your losses as far as getting a lawyer. The NRA, they'll give you 20% of that up front, $30,000 in other words. And then the other 80% comes if you have spent that money and if you are not guilty. So there are some basic differences there. Some of the access is different, of course, the amount up front. Another big difference for USCCA is that they will cover you if you're arrested for using any of the weapons, and including firearms, knives, baseball bats, clubs, fists. Mm-hmm. Anytime you are protecting yourself, they cover you. Whereas the NRA, they are firearms only. So you got to look at all these details. Like, for instance, gun-free zones. USCCA covers you in a gun-free zone. NRA, nope. You shouldn't have a gun in a gun-free zone, right?
That's incorrect.
Well,
I mean, if you're a licensed to carry person, you're able to do that. And all that means is, correct me if I'm wrong, right? Because a lot of people ask me this question. A gun-free zone is, let's say you're outside a gun-free zone and you commit a crime and you get charged with that crime. If you commit the same crime, but it's in the gun-free zone, it gets bumped up a notch. That's what I was told and explained.
That makes sense, yes.
Okay.
Yes.
So you can go in a gun-free zone as long as you don't commit a crime there.
Well, that notch is sometimes really important when it jumps from misdemeanor to a felony.
Felony, that's right. Yeah. I don't know. You're saying all this stuff about these things, and I'm being pretty quiet because every time you say something, I'm going, I don't trust that one either. I don't trust that one. What's the difference? What's the difference in me saying, I don't want this program, and I'll just call my attorney? What's the benefit of either or of the two?
Well, the only benefit I can imagine is I would suspect that these companies have lawyers that are very familiar with all the laws that you and I have been talking about over the last few weeks. Whereas an attorney you might call, because he's your cousin or your wife's aunt or whatever, may not know all that. And if they're a smart lawyer, they'll go ahead and do the research and find the best lawyer to help them with your situation. So it's
I would prefer that. Me personally, I would prefer. Let's say you're clueless in the area that I'm in trouble with, but I know you. I'm going to say, Rick, here's my situation. Square me away, and you're going to divert me to whoever it is that you know. And if you know them, I trust them.
well, absolutely, and that's our job as lawyers, is to make sure that we provide competent counsel for our clients, and that's not always us providing that counsel.
Mm-hmm.
So I have a network of friends throughout the United States. I've been active in our state trial lawyers and our National Trial Lawyers Association for many years now. So it's not hard to find those people. I don't know who these insurance companies might direct you to. I know that some of the stuff I've read talks about how the counsel might be in another state. I would worry about that. I mean, because state law is different from state to state. A lot of times you get into the political aspect of things. It's always nice to have counsel that is on friendly terms with the judge.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that helps out a lot. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, and there's so many other differences in these policies. Like some of them may offer discounts for military people or groups. Some of them may not. There may be some sort of a firearm theft protection coverage. Of course, you would have that in your homeowner's insurance, assuming you have homeowner's insurance. And some of them would not. And, that's kind of important, particularly for people who carry a nice firearm and have spent quite a bit of money on it, and it gets stolen. It's nice to have some coverage on it.
I was at a local meeting of somebody promoting this type of program. I'm not going to say the name, but not too long ago, let's say within the last year or so, there was a function going on inviting people to come and check out this program. And as I'm sitting in there listening, all the penal codes that we go over, all the time, you got to be careful of violating penal codes. Well, while we're in this function, listening to the attorney promoting the program, people would ask, well, what about this and what about that? And they go, sure, you can do that. Yeah, you can do that. And I'm sitting back there, and when I teach my classes, I'm thinking, the last thing you want to do is this, and the last thing you want to do is that. Make sure you know how to handle yourself to give you more time, to keep you far, far away from that dreaded decision of pulling the gun out or pulling the trigger. And these guys are saying, go ahead, no problem. We're there with your $35 a month. Your attorney's right there at the other end of the phone call. And man, it's like snake oil.
Well, I don't know. It's kind of like, when you leave the house and the wife says, gosh, I think I left the iron on. And you say, well, that's why we have insurance. But the kind of stuff you're talking about, could put somebody 6 foot under.
That's right.
And that just ain't right. I mean, knowing the laws is the most important thing. And that's why you do what you do. And it's recommended that we take all these courses and learn about this. And I'm like you, it just bothers me a lot when some insurance seller would say, oh yeah, it's okay to go ahead and do something like that, even though it's the wrong thing.
I would compare that to an officer saying, if you shoot him on the porch, just drag him in, you'll be all right. Drag him in the house. I'm like, no, man, what are you doing? What are you saying?
That's sort of a myth that gets circled around. There's a lot of urban legends out there like that.
A lot of people listen to urban legends, right?
That's right.
You know that. They just do it. Well, they said it was written on the bathroom stall. I could do it. It must be true.
Well, yeah, my favorite one now is it's written in the internet. Yeah.
It must be true. You can believe the internet.
We got that going on.
Ladies and gentlemen, if you want to call up, this is a great opportunity for you to ask a question. It ain't going to cost you a dime. Okay, yeah, I said ain't. But the number is 254-697-6633. We have Super Attorney Rick Dodd here. We're talking about legal protection, in these pretty packages for $35 a month. And your host here, moi, is not too keen on it. And I'm talking with Rick here, and we're getting the ins and outs of it. So give us a call, 254-697-6633. Rick, what else we got here?
Well, back to that insurance. I don't know what one you read, but my guess would be it was the NRA Carry Guard, because they are relatively new and they're making a big push.
It wasn't.
And of course, they have a lot of information. People like us who are interested in guns and the Second Amendment, they can point to us and sell it. So that's why they've decided that this is a great economic opportunity for them.
And I totally respect the person who wants to get it, because obviously, if God forbid something does happen, it'd be nice to have backup on your side, insurance, in other words, on your
Right.
side. But it's like a false reality, in my opinion.
Well, no doubt. I mean, if you really want to cover yourself, you buy them all, right?
That's right.
So somewhere in there, you got to make an economic decision that it's just not worth it. And there are several other opportunities out there for you. And of course, the best opportunity is do the right thing.
Oh yeah, but sometimes it happens where you can't, and that's why we're trying to cover all our bases.
Well, we also have this sense of paranoia about law enforcement today, and I think a lot of that's developed because of the news media and the things that are going on. I'm not saying it's not justified in all situations, but I think there's a sense of paranoia that's blanketed, that's a bit unreasonable, and because of that, we're worried about it. And of course, those are the kind of irrational concerns and worries that this Nobel economist talks about in his book that makes us react and spend money that's really not reasonable.
What would you suggest that somebody should maybe look for? Do you have like a checklist that say, if I'm going to look at this, you mentioned a carry guard, NRA, if somebody's going to look at it, what should they be looking for if they're reading the pamphlet? What should they highlight as, oh, I need to check this out, or this could not be exactly what they're telling me it is, or it's only a portion of what they're telling me?
Well, some of the things I talked about I think are the most important stuff, and that's how much protection you get, and then how it breaks down, civil, criminal protection. Who does it cover? Some of them cover your spouse, for instance. Some of them cover your spouse if your spouse is in the house. Some of them cover your spouse if your spouse is in the house or in a motorhome or in a hotel. Some of them don't cover your spouse. So, if you really want to cover everybody, cover yourself and your spouse with different policies. But then again, you're talking about the economics of it. You want to look at that funding aspect of it, whether or not you are funded up front for the whole amount. $30,000 typically will get any lawyer that I know started on a criminal case, but maybe not in some cities. I'm sort of limited to, in the criminal aspect, I don't know a lot about it, but what I do know is limited to this area. You got to look at this gun-free zone thing, and basically just the differences. And of course, on the internet, they probably have sites that break it down for you and give you a little more information. But beware of that too, because guess what? Things change. I mean, the NRA is always reactive. If they see a situation where their policy is not being bought because one of their competitors has an offer that's a little bit different, they're liable to change their offer to match it or even try to upgrade it. I mean, that's what competition's all about.
One of the biggest things that scares me about a program like this is I'm noticing the number. I've got ladies and gentlemen, I got the flyer. I'm not knocking anything. I'm just saying what I see, okay? I'm looking at the NRA's Carry Guard advertisement, and it's got a toll-free number on it. And you know what scares me about that, Rick? Here, the unfortunate happenings of me defending myself with a handgun has landed me in jail, okay? But I got that toll-free number in my head. You know who's going to answer that phone? Some $8, $9, $10 an hour receptionist trying to transfer it to somebody of importance. And I can just picture myself being on hold or hearing the call. If you've been in jail, press 1. Or Habla Espanol, press 2. You know what I mean?
Well, USCCA, they claim that they have what they call a critical response team that answers the phone 24/7. And, that sounds great. Kind of like the goal plan might sound great to somebody who's buying one of these coverages. On the other hand, the NRA, they have a call center, 800 number, like you say, 866, with a company called Lockton Insurance that is open from 7 a.m. to 6 p.m. And then it goes to a call center where someone like you described would answer the phone for the NRA. So you get to spend the night in jail at least.
Whereas if you build up a rapport with a good attorney locally, Rick,
yeah,
and maybe you have a personal access number, and you can say, "Hey, I'm hurting." I have friends of mine who go to me, "Look, if something ever happens to me, I'm not calling my attorney. I'm calling you, being me, because I know you will do what I got. If I give you that call, I know I got a trusted person on the other side going to take care of me and get me out of here as quickly as possible or set me up with an attorney." And it's true. I'd rather know if I get this call with a certain code, I know what I got to do. As compared to this toll-free number, I'm thinking, who am I getting on the line,
Yeah, plus that's Monday through Friday, the other thing is. So you get arrested on Friday night, It'll be Monday before you get someone at the NRA.
What do they serve in jail for breakfast anyway?
Oh, it's probably
powdered
worse
eggs?
than what they serve at the hospital. I don't know. Fortunately, I do not know. But I think beanie weenies is on the menu.
Okay, what other aspect can you clarify or clean up for us here? We've got about a few more minutes to go here.
Well, bottom line is I don't like any insurance company. They just, and of course I see the bad stuff all the time because it's what I do, generally speaking, is litigate against insurance companies because they lie, cheat, and steal on a regular basis. Fortunately for me, they do that. Otherwise, I'd be out of business. So.
But you got to have insurance. I mean, insurance is good. And what's nice about it is, I mean, let's be realistic. You got to have insurance. And there's companies out there and people that we know. I know people who sell insurance, and they're very reputable and they're very concerned that you get the proper insurance. They make comments to me and say, make sure it's apples to apples, oranges to oranges, comparing prices. One person may be cheaper. It's because they're not giving you everything that this policy gave you. And what's nice to know is if you have people like that working as agents, they tell you all that. And I know some, and they're very good at it. So we're not knocking insurance. We're knocking those who take advantage of it.
Well, I tend to kind of knock insurance because they seem to take advantage of everybody. But if you have dependents, if you have people and you have good term life insurance, that's going to be fine. If you have health insurance, you don't really need to go out and buy a special heart attack policy or a special cancer policy because you have health insurance. So that's what bothers me is these insurance carriers that double up on you. You know, I mentioned a while ago the rental car stuff. I mean, my policy for my automobile will buy me a rental car if I have to have it, and if I don't get it for some other reason, in other words, there's not coverage, it's not that expensive. It's not going to break the bank to have a rental car for a few days. Most of the time when you're wrecked, you don't ever even go get a rental car anyway. It's just kind of the way things work. Mm-hmm. So those are insurance policies that really take advantage of people who make these decisions like the Nobel guy was talking about.
Now, the type of legal services that you provide, Rick, you're always saying how you and Ross are on two different sides of the same coin. Why don't you clarify that exactly as to what you do?
Well, Ross likes to do criminal law work, and he's great at it. I, on the other hand, serve people who've been injured for whatever reason, and not just necessarily personal injury. I know we've worked on cases involving oil and gas, and we've worked on cases involving stolen intellectual property. You know, we litigate on behalf of the plaintiff, so we have the burden of proof, whereas Ross litigates on behalf of the defendant in a criminal aspect, where the state has a higher burden of proof. So it's a different type of law. It's just there's a lot more work, I think, in an individual case that I do than what Ross does. But on the other hand, when he goes to trial, he works real hard.
You know, I've watched you too in trial, selecting jury, things of that nature, and it's interesting to see you work on how you open up the people's minds to understanding of what they're about to be listening to, and not being closed mind to a certain situation based on one's perception of you. Open up their brains and saying there's different ways you can look at this. Just don't look at it in a funnel type of deal. So I've watched you, and it's pretty interesting to see that.
I appreciate that. Of course, all this stuff is clinical. And what I mean by that is when you watch any journeyman do his job, you think, wow, he's really good at that. You know, like a pipe fitter, you know, they know exactly what to do. I have spent a lot of time in class. I take CLEs, continuing legal educations, over 100 hours a year. We're required by law to take 15, but I go way beyond that, and that allows me to look pretty sharp when I stand up. Mm-hmm. But it's just really a clinical thing.
One of the things that stuck out, I remember, was you had a diagram of a flashlight, and we're saying it doesn't work. Well, does it not work because it's broken, or is there a battery missing, or are there batteries in the bulbs? I mean, you gotta look at the whole dynamics, the whole spectrum of things, and not just pick one and say, oh, that must be the reason, you know. So,
yeah,
Rick Dodd, good attorney.
Yeah, it has to do with you know, what injured you. Some people already have a bad back and they get hurt again. Is it the old bad back or the new injury? So the flash might have 4 or 5 batteries in it, but that last one is the one that turns it off.
That's right. That's good. Yeah, there you go. Okay, Trey, you got anything? Any questions?
I got a question for you.
Okay.
And you gave an example earlier of a young lady in her bedroom and hearing someone if that happens, are you supposed to turn your lights on or off?
You know, you got people saying both sides. Me personally, lights are off. I don't give the enemy any advantage. I don't want them to know where I am. I don't want to make any sounds. I want no lights. I want them to make all the creaking noises. So if you're asking me and it's nighttime, lights are off.
You know the inside of your house better than anybody.
That's
too.
right.
So what about outside? Do you try to turn the outside lights on if you hear somebody out?
If somebody's outside, based on all my experience and what I've learned, if I feel as though law enforcement cannot come to the rescue in a reasonable amount of time, in other words, I'm out in the country, okay?
Yes.
It takes time for somebody to get to me. If I'm in the city, I may say, lights on, stay in my house, call 911, let them do it. And do not go outside your house if you got law enforcement coming. It's the last thing an officer wants to do is see somebody with a gun in their hand, and it's the homeowner, they don't know who it is. So if you're in the city, lights on, call 911, hunker down, be safe, be prepared. If they breach your perimeter, okay, you do what you got to do.
That's lights on outside, right?
Lights on outside. Oh yeah, never put your lights on the inside. They can see in, but you can see out. The other way around, they see everything you're doing. So that's the first thing I do. I had an incident one time, Rick. Somebody came up to drive real fast. I shut every light off, and I observed them. We'll be back on the other side, ladies and gentlemen. We're running out of time. So when we come back, we'll be talking about what's coming up and a whole bunch of other stuff. Rick, tell everybody how they can get a hold of you.
Hey, give us a shout at the office. Come by. Look at respectforyou.com. 254-697-4965.
See you on the other side.